Welcome to today's edition of the Statler Financial Radio Show. Your financial security is our business. Have a question for the team? Call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
Big changes to your retirement could be coming. Will the big, beautiful bill help protect your savings, or will it bring new risks? Well, stay tuned to find out. Today on the Statler Financial Radio Show, we're breaking it all down and helping you show ways to stay ahead. So joining me today is Phillip Statler, founder and president of Statler Financial Services, here with me to bring savvy insights to help you protect and grow your wealth. So the big, beautiful bill is making its way through Congress after being passed in the House. President Trump said even though that step is a victory, there's still more work to do in the Senate.
We will be negotiating that bill, and I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. That's the way they go. It's very big. It's the big, beautiful bill, but the beautiful is because of all of the things we have.
So, Phillip, which parts of this bill should retirees pay close attention to, especially when it comes to their savings and estate plans?
Well, I think, Danielle, there are some things that we really need to understand about the new bill. And first, let's get this out of the way right now, is that it's not law yet, right? It's been passed by the House, but now it's in the Senate, and the Senate's trying to dissect it a little bit. So, so remember that when we're talking about things like this, is that it's not a done deal. And so we'll look at the proposed bill and what it looks to do. And one of the biggest things it's going to do is it's going to extend the lower tax rates that were introduced back in 2017 when President Trump was president the first time. And so what that means is taxpayers will avoid this sharp hike in taxes. As a matter of fact, Danielle, I was running some numbers for somebody the other day, and I ran a family of four with two kids, and that made about $80,000 a year. And what I found is that current family was paying less than $2,000 in taxes. If this law does not pass, or some form of it, and rates go back to what they were, that same family of four is going to pay over $4,000 in taxes. So that's a huge jump in taxes. And I know retirees are going to save money as well. So that's the first thing we need to remember, is that tax rates would stay where they are, which that would be a good thing. The second thing is, and this applies to a lot of folks that don't realize it, and that's the estate tax exemption and the increase that we had of that back in 2017 would stay in place. And that's a big deal, especially for small business owners, for small farmers, to be able to pass on from generation to generation. That's a big deal. And then the increase in standard deduction for seniors could mean that more money would stay in their pockets, less money in Uncle Sam's pockets. So in a big nutshell, this becoming permanent law could reshape retirement and legacy planning in a really, truly meaningful way.
That's right, Phillip. So big bills like this often come with fine print. So let's talk about what potential challenges should high net worth retirees watch out for, especially when it comes to their savings, their taxes, or even estate plans.
Well, I think that some of the things we need to look at is some of the benefits are going to expire in 2029. And so that could leave some planning that could be vulnerable, especially if you're relying heavy on the tax efficiency withdrawals of your taxable or retirement income, right? So it means that we've got more time that we can do like Roth conversions and some of that kind of stuff. And for those that are delaying their Social Security and they're pulling chunks of money out of their IRAs, it means that after 2029, that their tax rates could go up some. So they need to remember that and be really aware of that possibility. And again, the bill has not yet been passed by the Senate, meaning that a lot of what we talk about could change. And that's the thing I hate about looking at bills like this. But But I think people need to understand what's out there now and how that could change. So just because that bill passed the House, you still need to stay informed about, what could happen, what may happen, because that's going to be crucial to help you protect and grow your assets. And I think one of the other things is that preparing for some tax stability now means, you can craft a strategy that accounts for both immediate relief and potential adjustments down the road. And so that helps us really kind of preserve your financial future by looking at what those things are going to be going forward.
And you mentioned it, Phillip, since nothing is officially law just yet, what could we be doing to help stay ahead?
Well, I think that it's always good to review your income sources and your withdrawal strategies and to find the most tax efficient ways of doing those things, taking those monies out. I think another thing is taking a fresh look at your estate plan to see if the proposed exemptions, the increases that are going to come from that, might apply to you and might help you more than what you think. And then the other thing is you need to reconfirm your retirement goals. You need to help ensure that you're still on the right track. You need to pull that plan out if you have a plan. Folks, and that's what I want to talk about next is most of the folks out there don't have a retirement plan in place. A matter of fact, statistically, 70% of the folks out there listening to me today do not have any kind of plan in place for your retirement. And that can be detrimental. But that's why I created the Core Retirement Design to help you design that retirement you always dreamed of. Folks, give us a call at 863-877-1188 just to spend 30 minutes. We'll answer your questions. We'll make sure you're on the right track to the retirement that you're looking for. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. 863-877-1188. Schedule your 30-minute phone call. We'll make sure you're on the right track to the retirement you always dreamed of.
We like to remind you there's no cost, there's no obligation to talk with Phillip and the team at Statler Financial Services. In case you missed that number, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Now, if you're just now tuning in, we're discussing how the big, beautiful bill could impact your retirement. So, Phillip, taxes are a major focus in this legislation. We love talking about taxes here on the show. So what steps can people be preparing to retire to take if they're preparing for retirement? What steps can they take right now to help shield their wealth and prepare for maybe some potential changes?
Well, I think that, we talked about some of the changes that are coming, and I think you need to review what the impact is going to be for you, how this impact is going to lower your taxes on your retirement income. Just to get an idea, run the numbers yourself, see what it looks like. What happens if it doesn't pass? What's it going to do to you? Use this potential increased estate tax exemption to revise your savings or your legacy goals accordingly to take advantage of it. Factor in some of the potential 2029 expirations of tax benefits. So maybe you need to front load some of your gifting. You need to front load some of the Roth conversions that you want to do before that 2029 change happens. So that's a big deal. And then consider maximizing your contributions to your tax advantaged accounts now while rates are lower. In other words, instead of putting money in a tax deferred IRA, put into a Roth IRA. Yes, you're going to pay the tax now, but you're paying tax at a lower rate, and it's going to grow tax-free until you retire. Well, not until you retire. It's going to grow tax-free, period. You get to pull it out tax-free, never pay tax on the growth. That is the benefit that you need to be looking for.
So how important is it to stay proactive with our tax-efficient strategies in retirement to preserve our wealth and also help ensure that long-term financial stability?
Well, I think that, Danielle, planning for tax efficiency, to help you preserve more of your income and savings throughout retirement just makes sense, right? Everybody wants to hold on to as much as they can. And one way of doing that is make sure that what you're doing is in a tax efficient manner, not just for you and your immediate family, but what about your beneficiaries? I mean, these are things that impact generations that you could be accomplishing today. The other thing I would say is avoid surprises by understanding how different income sources like Social Security or, withdrawals from your IRAs, how those are taxed versus capital gains and qualified dividends. Understand how those things work together. Help minimize the impact of potential future tax rate increases by exploring strategies now. If we know tax rates could go up down the road, let's start looking at Roth conversions. Let's start timing our withdrawals properly. There's a lot of things we can do. We just need to stay focused on a plan. But if you don't have a plan, you don't have anything to refer back to. And that's important that you put together some kind of plan. And I'll say this, working with a financial advisor can help you identify opportunities tailored to your exact situation, helping you to ensure your long-term financial health, Danielle, because, hey, like your physical health, your financial health is very important.
That's right, Phillip. And so one of the things also for anyone who's feeling overwhelmed or unsure about navigating these potential changes, let's talk about what would you say is the most important first step to take right now to stay on top of their retirement planning?
I think one of the biggest things that needs to happen is planning. You need to have a plan in place. And it's never too early to plan. It can be too late to plan if you're really down the road. But if you are 5 to 10 years out from retirement, or if you've been retired 5 or 10 years, planning can still benefit you. And I want to really emphasize that we need to put together, you need to put together a retirement plan so that you know where your income's coming from. I know a lot of people are really worried about the changing laws and how they might impact you and your hard-earned wealth. I mean, you're not alone. Legislations like this big, beautiful bill, they could reshape retirement taxes, estate planning, and more. But it's not just this bill you need to plan for. Laws change and all the time. And, you need to know how they're going to impact you and how that could affect your future. We want to help you preserve your wealth against future taxes. Make sure that you're shifting in deductions and exemptions and understand how to benefit the most from those. Build some flexible, resilient retirement strategies that adapt to legislation and economic changes. And make sure that you got a written retirement income plan. That is so important. But here's the deal. We don't want to wait for laws to change for you to take action. Take action. Be proactive now about your retirement. The Core Retirement Design can help you do that. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. You and I will spend 30 minutes on the phone. I'll answer your questions. I'll make sure that you're doing the things that you need to be doing to get your retirement right. If I can help in any way, I'm going to show you how we can do that. Again, give us a call at 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
In case you missed that number again, that number is 863-877-1188. There's no cost or obligation. Again, that phone call is just simply 30 minutes. If you want to learn more about that core retirement design, you can easily learn more about it by giving Phillip and his team a call, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. Stick around because we're going to be answering some of your retirement questions right here on the show. We'll be right back.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Who likes uncertainty? Wall Street certainly doesn't. With fears of a potential recession and partisan politics, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. What will your future look like? Will your taxes go up? Will your savings go down? Here in the Sebring area, financial advisor Phillip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services have seen uncertainty come and go. Phillip can help you create a plan designed to preserve your finances in uncertain times. And it's not a matter of if those uncertain times will show up, but when. Call 863-877-1188 now to meet with Phillip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services. Call 863-877-1188 and schedule your visit today. 863-877-1188. Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, along with Phillip Statler. He's the president and founder of Statler Financial Services. Now we're talking about what it looks like creating a 5-star retirement plan. Well, picture a 5-star luxury resort. You have lush greenery, you have scenic views, and top-notch customer service. Now picture a run-of-the-mill roadside motel. Are you going into that? It's a roadside motel, probably is not going to be able to achieve that 5-star rating because I'm sure you know something is missing. Well, look at it like this. If you could rate your retirement plan, how many stars would you give it? So, Phillip, let's take this a step further. We're trying to see how ready we are for retirement. And I love this analogy of how can we make sure that our plans have a 5-star rating? What does that look like?
Well, I think that when we look at that, we have to look at 5 main points that I believe that you need to have to achieve that 5-star rating, right? We need to have a reliable income plan that is consistent and conservative. We need to have a wealth management strategy. We need to have a tax efficiency strategy. We want to be tax efficient in retirement. We need to have a plan to address healthcare. And then lastly, an estate planning strategy. What does that look like for you? And I know, I call them stars, but in reality, they're just 5 key components of having a great comprehensive retirement plan, Danielle.
And I love that you listed all of them out for us, Phillip. And what I would love for us to do is you make this sound easy every time. So what is the first step when we're talking about building this overall 5-star, but like you mentioned, it's components to an overall comprehensive retirement plan. What is the first step for building a reliable income plan?
Well, I guess you would start with how much income are you going to need, right? In retirement, what does that look like? And I think that there's some misconceptions here because a lot of folks have come to believe that, well, I only need half my income, or I only need, 70% of my income because I'm not going to have to pay as much in taxes and blah, 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 right? I mean, that's the thinking a lot of people have. And what we are actually finding is that, we really need to come somewhere greater than that number, somewhere probably between 70 and 100% of your current income. And that's really if you're debt free. If you're not debt free, then we definitely need to probably 100%, right? So that's kind of the first thing is how much do we need? And that comes down to what are we going to spend? So we have to kind of put together that budgetary item and determine what our spending is going to look like in retirement. And then from there, we can build the income. Where's it going to come from? How are we going to get it? Where's it going to rest? I use a bucket system where we bucket out money. We got this bucket for a certain period of time, and we've got 4 or 5, maybe 6 buckets of money that we're using to create that income over your lifetime. And so it's just having that process in place to be able to work through it.
Phillip, you brought up a good point of making sure we have enough money to last us as long as we live. So what are some of the tools for generating some income in retirement?
Well, I think when we look at tools, there are obviously bank accounts. I mean, we've got Social Security, whether you call that a tool or not. I think it is to the standpoint of when do you take it? You can minimize it or maximize it, right? And that becomes part of the process and the tool part of Social Security. There are things like annuities that were created specifically to help generate income. Now, when we talk about annuities, there's obviously you draw a little T account, Ben Franklin, and there's positive and negatives, right? So you have to weigh those out to make sure it's going to work the way you want it to. and it's going to add value to your income planning process. A lot of people, they have their portfolios. They have dividend stocks. Some people are just using CDs right now because interest rates are so high. So there's all kinds of tools out there. Some people have rental property, right, that are paid for, and that's generating a lot of income for them. So there's a lot of tools out there. You just got to know how to put those tools to work in your current circumstances. And again, that comes back to the process of why I developed the Core Retirement Design. The Core Retirement Design looks at 3 key components. It looks at risk in your portfolio, and it measures that. It looks at taxes, not just today, but taxes down the road and what that's going to look like to you in your retirement. And lastly, an income plan. Having that income plan in place so that you are confident in the retirement income that you're going to get month in and month out. The Core Retirement Design. Folks, give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis. Again, that number is 863-877-1188.
Phillip and his team have been doing this for many years, so they have experience in the questions that you have. They have answers to them, so there's no cost or obligation. All you have to do is give him and his team a call at 863-877-1188. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Phillip, can you talk about what is the difference between an income plan and a wealth management strategy?
Well, an income plan, Danielle, is setting up streams of income. A wealth management strategy is where do we put those, right? How do we get them? What is a strategy? And I look at more as a risk strategy because when we head into retirement, we cannot afford another bear market like we saw in 2000 and 2008 to wipe out everything that we've worked hard for. And so, we saw a lot of people that their 401ks were cut in half during those bear markets. And if you are getting close to retirement, that's something you cannot afford. And so we look at first diversification. We look at 2 types of diversification. The first type is safety versus risk. And folks, you need both buckets. You need both key components. The question is, how much do you put in each one of them? And that's part of the wealth management strategy, is determining how much goes to safety, how much goes to risk. Then the risk bucket, you've got to diversify even further. But that's really the wealth management strategy, is where do we put the assets to create the income that we're going to need in retirement?
Phillip, you mentioned that word assets, and so it kind of leads me to this question of, should retirees still have a portion of their retirement assets invested in the market?
I believe they do. Now, how much is up for debate, right? So I believe that we start with what I call the rule of 100. And the rule of 100 says, I'm going to take your age from 100. So 100 minus your age gives us a net number. If you are 65 years old, try that as 35%. So 35% is what we would be a starting point, not an ending point, but a starting point of what you might want to have invested in the market. Now, we narrow that down more by doing a risk analysis on you to determine what your risk tolerance number is on a scale of 1 to 100. And we use that to massage that number up or down, depending on what that looks like for you. But that's the key point. And I tell people, look, if you're 90 years old, you still need something, maybe 10% in the market, because that's going to help us continue to grow our money no matter what.
And I know many people have questions about this, Phillip, and so it kind of makes me think and wonder, why is it important for our money to keep growing in retirement? Because we don't want it to stop, right? We want our money to last as long as we live, but why is it important for our money to keep growing?
Well, I think, Danielle, if folks think back over the last 3 years, they know why, right? Because inflation, that ugly word, has really become part of our vocabulary, unfortunately, because everything costs so much more now than it did 3 years ago. And so a way to keep up with inflation is to grow our portfolios, to grow our investments to help us through that process of keeping up with inflation. And that's one reason that we look at the stock market, because the stock market historically has helped folks keep up with inflation. And so I know it goes up and down and there's volatility involved, but that's where we have that diversification between risk and safety. And so if we get those allocations done right, then we can handle some of the ups and downs and the volatility that we see in the marketplace. But all this comes to planning. I mean, that's the bottom line, Danielle, is we have to have a plan. And that plan needs to be written so that you know what it is and you can go back to it and look at it and say, okay, yes, I'm on track. I'm okay. And that's why I developed the core retirement design to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of. That's important. You've worked hard to get to where you are, and now you need to be able to enjoy that time in retirement. Give us a call at 863-877-1188 to go through our core retirement analysis. Again, that's 863-877-1188. It starts with a simple phone call. You and I discussing where we are, what you need to do, and how you can prepare for that retirement. Again, give us a call at 863-877-1188.
Now, you don't want to make any financial decisions without fully understanding the full impact on all the other pieces of your retirement plan. So do not hesitate to call Phillip and his team at 863-877-1188 to learn more about the benefits of having a comprehensive retirement strategy. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Now, again, we were talking about what it looks like planning for that 5-star vacation, because when you plan a vacation, you know how to research flights and hotels and look for all the savings, but how can you do the same thing for your retirement plan? We're going to continue the conversation on what it looks like to create a 5-star retirement plan right after this.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you're paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's VISIT to 863-877-1188.
Surprise parties can be fun.
Surprise!
Financial surprises, not so much, especially when you're retired, like finding out you owe more in taxes than you thought you would, or having to go back to work to make ends meet. Maybe you'll be okay, but why not double check just to be sure? Call Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services and schedule a no-cost retirement double check at 863-877-1188. Phillip and his team have seen their fair share of surprises over the years and know how to help you avoid them. Call 863-877-1188 to schedule your no-cost retirement double check with Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services. Don't let a financial surprise derail your retirement dreams. Call 863-877-1188 now. That's 863-877-1188. You can also visit StatlerFinancial.com for more info. Advisory services are offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your RMD, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back into the show. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, along with Phillip Statler. He is the president and founder of Statler Financial Services. We're continuing the conversation of what it looks like creating that 5-star retirement plan. Because, when you plan for a vacation, you know how to research the flights and hotels and look at your savings to make sure you have enough, because you want to make sure you get the most bang out of your buck. But the question is, it's also same thing for your retirement plan. Are you doing the exact same thing? It's important to make sure that you are taking the steps to help preserve your retirement savings. So, Phillip, one of the areas where we can really help protect our savings, you mentioned this earlier in the list, is being tax efficient. So can you kind of explain to us the difference between tax planning and tax preparation?
Absolutely, Danielle. So it's really a simple distinction, right? Tax preparation is historic, right? Typically we get to, January, February of the year after, and now we have to do our tax return. So we're looking back to the previous year and we're taking that information and putting it on the tax forms and paying Uncle Sam what we owe him, and we're done. That's tax preparation. It's historic. There's nothing we can do to fix it after it has happened. Tax planning is looking ahead, making adjustments based on belief of what the tax system is going to look like down the road. And not just today. I mean, if we're just focused on planning for today, it'd be one thing. But we are looking at saving tax dollars, not just today, but over your retirement lifetime. If we can save, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 of taxes today by doing something different, doesn't it make sense to do that? And that's part of our core retirement design. In the tax element, we are looking for ways that we can save taxes down the road, not just for our clients, but also for their children, right? Because that becomes important is how much can we save in dollars over your lifetime and your children's lifetime. And that's the planning process. And that's what we really have to look at when it comes to tax planning.
Phillip, I love this conversation because you make it sound so simple for us. So how do you approach tax planning? I would say with the goal that your clients can spend more of their retirement dollars the way that they want to.
So what we look at is, we look at what does it look like now, right? We know that tax rates are today probably the lowest that you and I will ever see. And we know that in 2026, they automatically go up unless some miracle happens, right? Which it could, but is very slim. And so we know that we're going to see some income taxes going up in 2026. And if you follow the national debt and what that looks like and interest rates going up, you can just visualize that the only way to pay that debt is going to be increased taxes down the road. And so, unfortunately, that's the belief of most of us out here, is that taxes are going to have to go up just to continue to pay the bills. And so it may make sense to pay some tax now versus paying higher taxes later. So we look at things like Roth conversions. That's a big deal. Or even just taking some money now and putting it into a non-qualified account, because taxes are lower now than what they're going to be in 2 to 3 years. But it's a process, because there's this little fine line you have to walk between, taking too much and doing Roth conversion and not taking enough. So I believe we should max out our tax bracket. So if you're in a 12% tax bracket, you need to be looking at ways that you can do Roth conversions to maximize that 12% tax bracket. If you're in the 22% tax bracket, we need to maximize the 22% tax bracket, because those tax brackets down the road are going to be a lot lower than what we're going to see. And so that's the process. And it's a big part of our core retirement design, is analyzing where you are, what tax savings are going to look like for you, and what can we do? How can we plan that out efficiently and effectively to make sure that we're paying the least amount of taxes over our retirement lifetime? The number to call to get on the schedule is 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to walk through our core retirement analysis. It's you and me, 30 minutes, figuring out where we are and where we need to get to. It's that simple, Danielle. And it's only a phone call, right? 863-877-1188.
That's right, Phillip. We like to remind our listeners that there's no cost or obligation to have a 30-minute phone call with you and your team. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Don't hesitate to call 863-877-1188. Phillip, as we're continuing down the list of creating that 5-star retirement plan, you mentioned healthcare. And so that kind of leads me to this stat that I want to share with you that says, according to Fidelity, a 65-year-old couple retiring in 2022 can expect to pay an estimated of $315,000. That's after tax for healthcare in retirement. Now, that is not including long-term care. So, Phillip, are retirees even aware that this steep estimate, and how can you help them prepare for that number?
Well, let me break this down in kind of my opinion and the way I look at it. And that's a 2022 number. Believe me, it won't be long before Fidelity comes out with their 2023 number and what that looks like. And it'll be more than $315,000. because I can remember a few years back, that number was $250,000. So obviously inflation is big when it comes to healthcare costs as well as everything else. And so you have to remember that that big number is for a couple. So that's two people. And that's for your retirement lifetime. If you retire at 65, they're expecting you to live 25 to 30 years in retirement. And so if you break that down annually, it's a big number. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as hard to get your hands around as that huge number they throw out there. It is important to understand that this is why we need an income plan that allows for and gives us some inflation step-ups to help combat things like this that inflation not only does for healthcare, but other items that we have to pay for. And so I think that it's just a process that we need to understand that healthcare is going to cost more and more, and that we've got to plan that and build that into our income planning process.
Phillip, what are some of the options for addressing, I would say, potential long-term care costs? Because that number I gave you earlier, it didn't include long-term care. And so what are the options for addressing the long-term care costs?
So I look at long-term care in a couple different perspectives, right? I look at first, because we didn't really have these 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, they were there, but they weren't mainstream, and that's assisted living. And so assisted living is one step in long-term care. But what I have seen, and this is true, I'm going to say in our local market, not necessarily in the Northeast or on the coast of Florida, because their prices are a lot higher than ours are. But a lot of folks in our immediate area actually can pay long-term care as far as assisted living out of their existing cash flow. Yes, is it expensive? It is expensive. But typically, if you have to go into assisted living, you're cutting out other expenses as well. And then there's nursing home. Well, that's a whole different animal, right? And so how do you pay for that? Well, you could buy long-term care insurance, way back when, and that will help offset some of the cost. There are actually life insurance contracts, life insurance that have living benefits that will help cover assisted living and nursing home. And so that's an option. There are annuities out there that have long-term care benefits where they take your benefit, their account balance, and maybe double it or triple it. There are different things out there. But let me just say, they all have pros and cons. And you need to look at them specifically and weigh those things out to make sure that they are going to make sense for you. And then lastly, if you don't do anything, then you're going to be subject to Medicaid is stepping in to help you out. Now, there's ways to plan for that as well. And I'm not the expert, but I have a team of folks that can help us walk through that process as well. So there are different avenues to take care of long-term care expenses. We just need to have the right team in place to help walk through that process, Danielle.
Now, Phillip, one of the last items that you had on creating the 5-star retirement plan is estate planning. So very quickly, how does estate planning fit into an overall 5-star retirement plan?
Well, it comes back to beneficiaries, having the beneficiary designations properly listed on your accounts. And, if your estate's big enough, maybe you should have a trust. If it's not big enough, then we need to make sure that we've got beneficiaries on all of our accounts. Our bank accounts, our non-qualified accounts. You can add beneficiaries to those accounts, and you need to make sure you've done that to help bypass probate. So that's the thing. The other thing I will say when it comes to estate planning documents is, a lot of people think of a will or a trust as estate planning documents, and they are. But there's a couple other ones that I think are as important, maybe even more important, and that's power of attorneys. Having that financial and healthcare power of attorney set up is huge. And I say it this way, Danielle, because the power of attorney is going to take care of you while you are alive. The will, the trust, you're gone. You've passed away. Now, that may be a harsh way of looking at it, but the power of attorney is going to take care of you while you're here alive. And that's why I think it's ultimately important that you get those things taken care of.
Now, to recap everything that you mentioned, Phillip, the 5 ways to create the 5-star retirement plan include a reliable income plan, a wealth management strategy, a tax-efficient strategy, and a plan to address healthcare, and also an estate planning strategy. I know you and your team have done this for many years. And so how do you help people build a retirement plan that incorporates each part? And what's the best way that we can contact you and your team?
Absolutely, Danielle. So again, that's why I created the Core Retirement Design, to help people design all parts of their retirement process. And it starts with risk analysis. How much risk do you have in your portfolio versus how much risk should you have in your portfolio based on your current circumstances? How close you are to retirement? How old are you? These are all important pieces of that puzzle. And then we look at taxes. What do taxes look like for you today? What are they going to look like for you in 5 years or 10 years? We don't know exactly, but we can make some assumptions and plan out what that may look like for you. And then we need to make sure that we've got that income plan in place. And we need to build it to make sure that we've taken care of inflation. To start that process, give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
If you have questions about retirement, don't hesitate to call Phillip and the team at Statler Financial Services. They are here to guide you through a successful retirement. Again, that number you mentioned is 863-877-1188. Again, 863-877-1188.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Call Phillip Statler today, 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815.
Surprise parties can be fun.
Surprise!
Financial surprises, not so much, especially when you're retired, like finding out you owe more in taxes than you thought you would, or having to go back to work to make ends meet. Maybe you'll be okay, but why not double check just to be sure? Call Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services and schedule a no-cost retirement double check at 863-877-1188. Phillip and his team have seen their fair share of surprises over the years and know how to help you avoid them. Call 863-877-1188 to schedule your no-cost retirement double check with Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services. Don't let a financial surprise derail your retirement dreams. Call 863-877-1188 now. That's 863-877-1188. You can also visit StatlerFinancial.com for more info. Advisory services are offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Sounds like the mailman's here.
It's time to answer questions from the Statler Financial Mailbag.
Welcome back into the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin. Now, each and every week, Phillip gets questions about all things retirement. So right now on this segment, it's our favorite part of the show. We're going to open up our Statler Financial Radio Show mailbag and go over some common retirement questions. It's a great opportunity for us to listen to different scenarios and hear from you around the community. So Phillip, are you ready to dive in?
Absolutely, Danielle. Let's see what the mailbag has to offer us today.
That's right. Okay, so our first question comes from Mary from Avon Park. She says, my husband has been laid off after more than 30 years of factory work. We had a good amount of money saved in our emergency fund, so we didn't need to panic immediately. I think we're fine financially if he retires, but I don't think it will mentally be the right choice right now. So who might we need to talk to?
Now, that's a very interesting question. So I think that when we look at that, one of the things, and that's a very good question, Mary, because I think that a lot of people don't think about that, right? They think about the financial part of retirement. They don't think about the mental aspect of retirement. It's a big change. And it's one of the things that we coach our clients through all the time because it is a big change. It's a change in their life, especially, Mary, like your husband. He wasn't anticipating, this layoff, and so that means it's not a planned retirement, right? It would be an abrupt stop for him, which is tough from a mental standpoint. So one of the things that we do when we coach our clients is we talk about what else could we do? What things could we go volunteer? Do we have a part-time job? what things like that. And the other part of that is how much work do we have to do? So we would want to look at how much do we have in the 401k? How much do we have in retirement accounts and other accounts? And we want to build out an income plan so that then your husband could do really whatever he wanted to do if he knew his income was coming in. He wouldn't necessarily have to have a job. He could go volunteer someplace and still, feel like he's giving back and feel like he has a purpose, because that's the key. We want to have a purpose, and we help our clients do that all the time. Figure out what's a good avenue for them to look at and to put their efforts into once they retire. Because you're right, idle hands won't work out well, especially for us men. We like to keep doing things, and so that's what I would suggest, Mary. Give us a call. We'd be happy to sit down with you, look at your current circumstances, and see if we can help point you in the right direction, some things that you might be able to take advantage of.
Great insights there, Phillip. Thank you. Okay, we have another question here in our mailbag from Linda from Sebring. She says, we are honestly not planning to leave much of an inheritance to our kids after paying for braces, college, cars, and weddings, and times 3. So I feel like that should be enough, right? If we don't plan to leave a big inheritance and we have a good amount saved already, is there anything else that we might want to consider including in our plan? Great question, Linda.
Great question. So it sounds like they're planning for themselves, which is always good. You want to take care of you first. If there's anything left, that's great. But let's get you taken care of first. And I think that, that comes down to planning, having, again, that income plan. And for you, who you don't really care what you'll leave the kids, then maybe we look at front loading, what I call front loading. So what that means is maybe we take out a little bit more than we planned on taking or what we normally would take out of an income plan that first 10 years. That gives you the opportunity to travel more, do more things, have more experiences. And then we start to taper it back down a little bit to what we would normally take out later in your retirement years. Because you don't care what's left at the end. And that's typically what we would do for somebody that has those circumstances that really, they just want to enjoy their retirement. And so to do that, we need to, get as much out of our investments as we can on the income side. And so we build that income plan. That income plan, we would focus more on those first 10 years of retirement, maybe taking a little extra out, like I said, and that would give you the ability to maybe travel a little bit more, do a few more things. And so that's what we would do. And I have several clients that we've done that. We front loaded, and then later in their retirement, we back down their income because they're not going to travel as much. They don't need as much from that standpoint. So good question, Linda.
That's right. Okay, so Phillip, we have time for one more question from Ryan from Avon Park. His question is, what are some good resources to help me learn more about my options for Social Security?
Good question. Social Security is always a big topic around here. And so we have a couple different things. You can go to the ssa.gov website. If you've not created your own account, I would suggest you do that so you can pull down your own report and see what you would receive in Social Security benefits at age 62 and at age 67 and age 70. That would give you some context to kind of determine what your options are. I would recommend looking at your health, your longevity within your family. One area that I don't think people look at Social Security for, and that's survivor benefits. People don't always consider that. And I say that because let's say, and typically it's the man, and not always, but that has the higher wage earning. And so his Social Security is typically going to be a little higher. And so what that means is that at his passing, the higher Social Security is going to now become his spouse's Social Security. And so a lot of times we'll look at it from that standpoint of survivor benefit. Let's maximize it as a survivor benefit to my spouse. But there's a lot of good options for that. It's one of the things we do when we do our income planning. We look at optimizing your Social Security, and sometimes it makes sense to take it early. And it depends on your current circumstances, and we want to make sure that we've covered all the different avenues and answered your questions in terms of how that works. And so I'd love to sit down with you and show you those options that are out there and put together that income plan for you with our core retirement design. Folks, again, I know we've spent a lot of time. We've answered some good questions today, Danielle, some questions that we get on a regular basis. But I want to remind you, folks, that putting together some kind of plan is ultimately what needs to happen. And that's why I developed this core retirement design. We look at 3 key aspects of retirement. Because here's the deal. Before you retire, you're trying to grow that asset. You're trying to grow your wealth, grow your investments. Once you hit that timeline of I'm retired, it kind of reverses. Now you're not adding to, you're taking out. You need to take out your requirement distributions. We need to take out distributions to live off of. And so we need to make sure that the risk that we're taking matches up with that change from working to retired. And our core retirement design does that. The second thing is taxes. We want clients to be paying the least amount of taxes possible, not today, but over their lifetime. So sometimes that means we pay a little bit more tax up front so that we pay little or no taxes down the road, depending on circumstances. So we look at a whole Roth conversion plan to see what makes sense and how that plan would work over a 5 to 10 year time span to get as much as we can move from IRA to Roth IRA. And then lastly, we've harped on a lot today, and that's income planning. The third leg of that core retirement design is to design that retirement income plan so that you know where your money's coming from month in and month out, and make sure you know how much you can spend in retirement. And that you can have that comfort level of knowing that, hey, based on this, I'm not going to run out of money. That's the peace of mind you need heading into retirement. That's our core retirement design. I'd love to talk to you. Give us a call at 863-877-1188, a 30-minute phone call, no cost, no obligation, just to chat about where you are, where you want to go, and how to get there. Again, that number is 863-877-1188, 863-877-1188. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Phillip, so much for your insight. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. Like he mentioned, if you have questions about your own retirement plan or just want a second look, a second opinion, to get a second eyes on that, on your retirement plan, if you have questions about potential gaps, do not hesitate to reach out now. Call the number 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll talk with you next week.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Second Half Financial Partners, LLC does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation. This radio show is a paid placement.